recorded. This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, welcome everybody. I'll let everybody get signed in so far and see if we get a few more added in. Okay, we'll let other folks in as they come along. So let me go ahead and get started. While I wait for my colleague and co-presenter to join us, hopefully soon. So welcome to our presentation on the 6 top craziest conspiracy theories, titled, Did You Know That Ancient Aliens Helped Michael Jackson and Sasquatches Build Pyramids on a Flat Earth Bordered by an ice wall guarded by NASA to make sure no one finds out about the fake moon landing that was staged to hide the existence of giant Anunnaki underneath the Vatican that serves as the headquarters for the Illuminati, and could have gone on from there. Yes, that is a very long title. But we're going to present some of the more wacky and far out there conspiracy theories that of course can be found out there. And these are some of the exceptional wacky ones. So I'll preface this by saying a number of them will have connections to the TV show Ancient Aliens. I guess you could say a lot of those might fall under the ancient alien theory umbrella, but many of those actually started out as separate theories, and ancient aliens back basically kind of, I guess in the finest some of the close encounters type, you could say that the ancient alien UFOs came along and kidnapped a lot of the conspiracy theories and basically made them their own. Yeah. Well, if you're going to have a TV show dedicated to ancient aliens that's gone on for 17 years, you got to come up with new material. And so basically the ancient aliens guys have been, they grab every single conspiracy theory they can get their hands on and make it part of the ancient alien storyline. I mean, it's quite clever, and it's helped the show survive for quite a number of years. Let me respond quick. My colleague apparently needs a link to the presentation, and let's see. Okay, just sending the link. So hopefully my colleague will join us soon. As I was saying, that a lot of the ancient alien theories or a lot of separate conspiracy theories were just essentially vacuumed up by ancient aliens. I guess you could say they almost kidnapped them, or something to that effect. I mean, it is how they managed to, part of how they managed to survive for 18 seasons, and well, not only survive, actually become a hit show. I think last year a Hollywood movie studio actually brought the rights to the Ancient Aliens concept, bought up the movie rights for like several $1,000,000. I wonder if the Ancient Aliens got a cut of that. I have no idea what kind of movie they could make about ancient aliens, other than either it's going to be a movie that's full of conspiracy theories, or this could end up being a complete and utter comedy. Given how smart that the ancient alien guys think that they are, I wonder if they realize that they might be in for a public embarrassment, perhaps, if they get a movie that mocks them or something like that. And it's kind of hard to imagine a movie like being made of ancient aliens that will be taken seriously. But hey, of course, if they're just in it for profit and success, well, by God, they've accomplished it. I mean, their ideas are in many cases ludicrous, but I cannot argue with their success. They found a winning formula, and they've actually kind of helped popularize and mainstream a lot of conspiracy theories. Well, except the one that'll be at the top of my list for the craziest conspiracy theories ever presented. Yeah, so so let me start off before we get to my top three, and I'll wait for Liana to hopefully be able to join us soon. So we'll start off with some of the also ran conspiracy theories, the ones that came close but didn't quite make my top three. And there's several of these. Oops, sorry. One more minute. Okay. Oh, where the hell is? I sent the wrong Zoom link. Yes, we are not exactly the most, sometimes we're not exactly the most organized folks in the world, but we're English professors, not technicians. Okay, one more message. Sorry about this, but I tell you, it's a conspiracy to prevent us from making this presentation. That's it. It couldn't be my mistakes. It's it's a giant conspiracy theory, conspiracy to make sure that we don't give away the secrets of the Illuminati or the NASA, who's, controls the borders of the flat Earth. Oh, well, obviously flat Earth theory is going to be one of those. And I guess you can probably guess which one's going to be my number one, top of the line. Okay, so yeah, there's like a lot. Well, first, I'll begin by introducing a theory that, kind of illustrates how Ancient Aliens operates. And this is actually from like the very beginning of the whole Ancient Aliens theory. So yeah, let me cover that one. The whole Ancient Aliens theory can actually trace its roots back to 1966. So, one of the things that first let me preface. Okay, one of the things Ancient Aliens tries to do is hello, let me. Okay, let me trying to.
Hi, sorry, I moved. I had a hard time getting in.
Yeah, that my responsibility. I sent the wrong meeting link the first time that you sent the message, and I was just telling him that this was obviously a conspiracy theory to stop us from presenting. The Illuminati and probably
it's
the Vatican.
Obvious.
Yeah, the Vatican too is probably trying to stop us from doing that, and Ancient Aliens. So I was actually saying that that the origins of the Ancient Alien theory goes back to 1966, when Carl Sagan and another fellow astronomer wrote a speculative science book that asked the question, could ancient civilizations have been in contact with humanity? Now, keep in mind, this is Carl Sagan, a world famous astronomer, developer of the Sagan standard of extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. So this was strictly theoretical, or just a hypothesis or a question. But then a writer, Eric von Däniken, who is essentially the father of the Ancient Alien theories, took Carl Sagan's theory or hypothesis and changed it to, could this have happened, to, it actually did happen. And he wrote what became an international bestseller that's still in print, Chariots of the Gods. And that basically began the whole ancient alien movements. Amazingly, Eric von Däniken is still around. The guy's in his 90s, and once in a while, if you turn to Ancient Aliens or like the channel Zohar Ancient Stargate Discoveries, you can once in a while see videos with Eric von Däniken doing presentations and so forth. It's amazing the guy's still around. I guess I don't begrudge the guy that Ancient Aliens kind of brought him in from the cold and popularized his theories, which have been rejected. But the von Däniken model, I guess you could say, of taking a scientific idea and then stretching it to ridiculous proportions is part of the Ancient Aliens operations. They've been doing that since day one. Yeah, it's a very clever thing. One of the things they do on their show is that they'll have a legitimate scientist being interviewed, a physics professor or biologist or something like that, and then maybe they have a couple of other legit scientists making comments on it, and then the rest of them come on and blow it all out of proportion. So they create the illusion that they're presenting scientific theories. But They, of course, don't present it as theories, they present it as fact. Or strongly imply that it's fact rather than just being theoretical. It's a very clever move. I mean, the show's built an audience and it's lasted. And of course, any convenient theory that or hypothesis that comes along that can help them maintain respectability, they grab. So one of the also-rans that I had that came close was something called the Silurian hypothesis, named after the Silurian race in the Doctor Who franchise. And basically, this is basically a hypothesis or theory designed to provoke questions and maybe suggest further research. So basically, it's the idea that if there had been ancient civilizations in Earth's past, like say an intelligent race of dinosaurs, would we know that they exist from the fossil record? And they point out that although there's been humans around for many hundreds of thousands of years, the fossil record on humans is extremely incomplete. And signs of the places we inhabit are also, the further we go back, more and more incomplete. And so what this was designed to suggest or ask the question is that if Earth had ancient civilizations in the past, or other planets had ancient civilizations in the past, like for example, Mars, let's say, would we be able to see evidence of those, or would things like weathering, climate, ice ages, catastrophes like meteor and asteroid impacts and so forth, perhaps erase evidence of that civilization? Now, of course, again, this was just entirely theoretical, but the ancient aliens folks took it, and I've already seen them grab it, essentially. And basically, they've used it to now say, well, any evidence of the civilizations we're talking about, like Atlantis or Lemuria or the Anunnaki or so forth, was all wiped away in a wide variety of catastrophes that erased all the evidence from the historical record. There was like an hour-long one on that Zohar Ancient Stargate Discoveries with the guy saying, oh, there were all this evidence of civilization 12,000 years ago, but it was all wiped away in a catastrophe of a rogue planet that weren't through the solar system and knocked everything out of place. It turned the Earth from being on a perfect axis to having a 23-degree tilt when it should have a perfect axis. And it's like, what? It created the asteroid belt. What? So yeah, no proof of the theory, but he covers it by saying, well, all evidence of it was wiped away by catastrophes. So yeah, the ancient alien guys now have a theory that can say, well, there's no evidence to prove what we claimed, but this theory shows that there can't be any evidence. So we gotta be telling the truth. You can't make this stuff up. I mean, it's actually, it's giving them carte blanche to say, well, we can't find any evidence, but that doesn't mean our theories aren't right. Come on. Okay, Liana, you want to present one of yours that may not have made the top three, or you want to kick off one of your top three?
Hold on, I lost the meeting. Okay. Yeah, I wanted to talk about one more current one and one very old conspiracy theory. And maybe I'll start with that because that may be something that people don't know that much about. So I'm from Romania, and maybe you've heard of Romania in relation to Dracula and vampires. So there are a lot of different explanations how that myth of the vampire started, but one thing that is considered one of the more plausible theories about it, it's not a conspiracy theory, is that it actually started with a conspiracy theory. So the theory is that it's connected to several different parts of Romanian and Hungarian culture. And one is, of course, there were folk tales and things like that that circulated through Eastern Europe, and that's not part of the conspiracy. I mean, those were just folk tales, and superstitions and things like that that are, you know, understandable as part of the origin story of the myth of vampires that turn into a lot of modern stories, and people still love vampires. But how did that get associated with Vlad the Impaler, who was a Romanian, he was a Romanian prince in Transylvania. And Transylvania, if you're not too familiar with that, Transylvania is kind of a disputed, parts of it were disputed between Hungary and Romania, and in different times, points in time, and all of Transylvania belonged to Hungary and all of Transylvania belonged to Romania. And now it's kind of split. A part of it is in one and a part is in the other. So in any case, Vlad the Impaler was Romanian, but Hungarians had this countess. So both of those, both Vlad the Impaler and this countess called Elizabeth Bathory, both have contributed to creating the myth of Dracula. And how with Countess Bathory, who's known also as the Blood Countess, and she was a real person. So it's she was a person who lived in I have here it's 1560 to 1614. So she lived between the 14th and 15th century. So her husband was a count, and he died early. He went to war and he died at the age of 48. And when she was left with all the lands, she became kind of a tyrant, and a lot of peasants were complaining about her treatment of them. But that's when conspiracy theories started. So even while she was alive, there were rumors going around that she was killing a lot of women to bathe in their blood to keep herself young, or to drink their blood to keep herself young. So this is pretty much the origin of the idea of drinking blood. And there was a conspiracy theory that hurt her so much that in fact and there was an uprising against her. And she finally, and there were allegations of torture and things like that. And some things may be true, that she was a woman and she was trying to establish her authority at the time in a pretty patriarchal society. So that might have been true that she wasn't a very nice person. And at the time, in medieval times, there was a lot of torture being used to either to scare enemies or to punish different lawbreakers. So that's not necessarily unusual. And that's one thing that Vlad the Impaler also did, especially to scare, it was a scare tactics for the Turks. He was impaling people. So that part is true also, that Vlad the Impaler was an impaler. And he did not invent that strategy of scaring the Turks, but he, because it was used in other countries too. What he did that was more unique to him was that he created kind of forests of impaled people to scare the Turks. He was ruling over a very small kingdom, and the Turkish Empire was huge and was constantly trying to occupy the territory. So one way that he was able to keep away this huge empire was that he scared them. He would come into the country and find these forests of impaled people. So part of that, of course, led to the mythology of Vlad the Impaler and Dracula. But it was combined with some of these the conspiracy theories that existed in Elizabeth Bathory's time, that basically alleged that she pretty much killed about 600 virgins to be able to maintain her youth. And she was put on trial in the end. And it was one person who accused her of torture and something that had nothing to do with the drinking of virgin blood. But so she was in fact executed for some real things that she had done. But the legend remained about her. And in her lifetime, that was a conspiracy theory about her, that she was bathing or drinking virgin blood. So all of these things combined led to what we have now as these stories and myths of vampires, and associated mostly to Romania, but in part with Hungary as well, because again, Hungary still has part of Transylvania now, and Romania has a bigger part of Transylvania. So that's one conspiracy theory that is, for me, is very interesting, because I also think that conspiracy theories are how legends are born, and maybe in the future there will be a memory of what we think today as conspiracy theories. They will become stories and legends sometime in the future.
Or fiction can become fact.
And fiction can become
too. Well, and with Elizabeth Bathory and Vlad the Impaler, the accounts of what they did were often written by their enemies. So,
which is always the case for conspiracy theories, that the people who propagate them are people
so
who don't like those.
Really, you can't know what. I mean, undoubtedly, the things about at least the stuff with the Turks about Vlad the Impaler, Vlad Tepes or Vlad Dracula were indeed true, but he was a very brutal person living in an extremely brutal time. And he was trying to protect his kingdom. This is the first I've heard that the stuff about Elizabeth Bathory might not be strictly fact, but in fact, it might not be. You consider all the, the people that didn't like him wrote the histories, who knows what the actual truth might have been.
But, sorry.
Oh, no, it was,
a lot of conspiracy theories have a germ of truth, and that's why they take such a strong hold. So with her, I believe that there was torture in her time, and then she was an authoritarian, and she probably killed people or had them executed through torturous means. But this idea that she bathed in virgin blood or drank virgin blood in order to stay young, and 600 women that she killed for that purpose, I think that was the conspiracy theory that was circulating.
Sounds
maybe
like
based on her cruelty.
Yeah, sounds like a great story that was cooked up, but not necessarily the truth. And of course, that's also part of another one that was these conspiracy theories were ones that I could not figure out the origins to in some way. And I guess they can fall into the category of, the first one I heard was called the phantom time theory, where a person or a group was claiming that the Dark Ages from 600 to 900 AD never took place. And
oh wow.
it was crazy, but the thing was, I couldn't. Usually you can track down the origins of something or why something might exist, like fake celebrity deaths are kind of wish fulfillment that they were still around, or megalithic structures for ancient aliens. But phantom time of like, why 300 years? Yeah, there's Elizabeth Bathory.
Elizabeth Bathory here.
Yeah, the phantom time. Why that 300 years? And then there was another one with somebody on TikTok who proposed that the Roman Empire didn't exist and was made up by the Spanish Inquisition. I'm still not sure why the Spanish Inquisition would make up the Roman Empire, or how they could pull that off. And her proof was, well, there's no primary sources written in Latin, which is like, what? Well, and actually I was watching a YouTube video from a classical, very well done channel of a professor of classical studies that she calls herself the Lady of the Library instead of the Lady of the Lake. And she was debunking the Roman theory. And she kind of gave me the answer to why these bizarre theories like that of like a missing 300 years that makes no sense. It was basically a way for for these individuals to make themselves look intelligent. And I go, yeah, something, I think that may be it, that maybe you had somebody who wanted to go into studying ancient Greek and Roman literature or history, and maybe they just couldn't make it. Because, I mean, if you're going to study that, you have to learn the languages. And not everybody's really good at learning languages. And I don't know that there's a Babbel for Latin or ancient Greek or something like that. And maybe desperation to be accepted, they come up with these conspiracy theories that are based on not very well-known historical periods, and then present
But
them
even
to the
the
world.
historical periods that are known very well and documented very well, such as World War II and the Holocaust, people find it so easy to create conspiracies about things that there's footage of, and they say, well, the footage was made up or the pictures are made up.
And it's even easier to do one for things where there's no footage.
Yeah, so imagine for things that are from 2,000 years ago.
Yeah. Although the Roman Empire is kind of a stretch. And you could tell this person that was proposing it probably shouldn't be taken seriously when a lot of her videos on TikTok were presented with her wearing like a bare face makeup, I guess. It's
I should probably also have never been to Italy, because if you go to Italy, the footprint of the Roman Empire is still there. You live within.
Well, she actually says that ancient Greeks built all those. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I was just trying to find more pictures of Countess Bathory, and this is part of that conspiracy that I think it was a conspiracy theory at the time.
That looks like it's some painting from a horror movie or something like that. Yeah. Or some graphic comic book, the over the top art, the bodices ripping, Yeah, it makes a great illustration. It's a heck of a lot better than, well, she tortured people and was disliked for that. Yeah, nobody would.
And everybody was tortured. I mean, torture, again, is not invented in one particular part of the world. It was just something, I mean, it was, I'm sure each instrument of torture was invented by somebody, but they circulated so much over all of Europe, and you don't even want to know what the real instrument of tortures were. That's not even a conspiracy theory. So we have bad enough that things did exist. There were horrifying ways to torture a person.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that could be in and of itself. Okay, for one more history or alternate theory that almost made it the top three was basically, this is one of those that crosses several different ones, and that's an alternate history of the Earth written by this guy that called himself Zecharia Sitchin, who was a self-taught individual who knew Sumerian. He taught himself. And he supposedly translated all of these clay tablets from ancient Sumeria, and that revealed to him the true history of the Earth, which involved aliens, the Anunnaki, lizard people from outer space, the aliens helping human civilization, and he wrote 13 volumes of it.
Wow.
It's crazy. I don't think I'd try to actually read it, but he actually did this whole history. The thing is that all of that history was taken apart in about 5 minutes by an actual person who had been learned Sumerian through an academic setting. And he basically said that Zechariah, for all his desire to chronicle things, made a very basic mistake. He got the language wrong of the tablets he was translating. He used the wrong dialect. He kind of assumed that every city in ancient Sumeria spoke the same language or had the same form of writing in cuneiform, which was not the case. So that basically means that he basically mistranslated everything. But still, the guy said that it's a damn good story. it could make a really good set of movies. It's just not real, and just stems from a very simple mistake. And he says, that doesn't mean it's not entertaining. Just don't take it as actual fact, as many of the ancient aliens do. Okay, Liana?
Sorry, I lost my Zoom. So, well, I don't have what I wanted. Can I talk about my second theory? Or
Yeah. Yeah.
it's not. I mean, my top two was part of something that I was following because I've been a fan of Michael Jackson. So now I'm going to move from aliens to celebrities that never die. So if you still want to talk about aliens, I'll let you talk a little more about
I'll come
it,
back
and
to it. I'll come back to aliens later. They're among my top three. But yeah, let's go ahead to Michael Jackson.
Okay, well, I do want to say that with Mars in particular, Mars was the planet that always inspired the most speculation about aliens.
Oh, yeah.
And it's very interesting to me that today, the real science is trying to find alien life on Mars. And this is not a conspiracy. It's what they have found water, and they're trying to look for signs that at least microbial life has existed on Mars.
Yeah.
And they're still trying to figure out if it still exists now, because it may exist at deeper, at some depth inside of Mars. They're trying to maybe dig out parts of hidden ice that might contain still microbial life. And the idea is that there might have existed life, but not as advanced as on Earth, but it got lost. Mars lost its atmosphere because it lost its gravity, because it's a smaller planet, and it cooled off inside. The core of Mars has cooled off, and so the air kind of started leaving. All of the atmosphere started leaving it because it lost its gravity. So, but there might still be a core of ice inside of the crust of Mars, not at the core, but closer to the surface, where there still could be microbial life or something similar. So the conspiracy theory is based on a germ of curiosity, right? And now we're finding evidence that it's possible.
Well, but of course, this is the real science where you're talking about microbial life, and maybe, depending on if, Mars will have to be explored much more extensively, and much more careful excavations done beyond what you can do with rovers. I mean, you can only get so far down with a rover, placed on Mars.
But if we actually send people to Mars, they may be able to dig out further down than a rover can. But to me, it's interesting that the conspiracies about Mars and real science are converging today, because in the past, the term for aliens was Martian. Martian was almost synonymous to alien. And that was the first planet that we looked at. Probably we thought first about the moon, that there were cheese people on it, but
there's still people that will take probably the most popular conspiracy theory for aliens on Mars was that old 1970s picture from the Viking orbiters that had that structure that looks like a face to it. I mean, it's an old popular picture, and ancient. You can probably find some Ancient Aliens episodes where they crack open that picture again and go, aha, see, this was built by aliens and Martians. Unfortunately, one obvious weakness of our argument is the fact that they dragged this up from the 1970s. Mars has probably been beyond the moon, Mars has probably been the most studied planet by various space agencies. So there have been a crap load of probes that have been sent to Mars that were far more advanced than the Viking. orbiters, which were the cutting edge of technology of their time in the late 1970s. But of course, they've been eclipsed by so many other different things now. And they took pictures of that area that supposedly had a face. And it turned out it was just an effect of the lighting and the effect of the shadows. It's not actually a face. It's just a mountain that has had weathering that in certain light, primarily black and white, could appear to be a face, but in fact, it's not. I mean, and as Carl Sagan said, you know, the study of whether aliens exist is can be a legitimate one. Yeah, Liana got that up on the picture. It's hard to see. Yeah, okay, there we go. Yeah, and you can see what. Yeah, the face on Mars. Yeah, it actually, you know, looks, you know, like it could be, but it's just a picture taken at a certain time at a certain angle. But the search for extraterrestrial life, no matter what form it might take, is a legitimate one. And with the recent, like, you know, sightings by the U.S. Navy pilots, like David Fravor, and the military footage, the Go Fast and the Tic Tac, you know, those are, you know, very tough to dismiss. And those craft that they pictured and the testimony and the Navy pilots are truly extraordinary testimony because of their expertise at this. That raises the possibility that there are actually even alien civilizations watching us. And, you know, I'm going to go don't think I'm crazy here, but it is possible, if we went back to Carl Sagan's original idea in 1966, if aliens are observing us now, like we would observe, like human scientists study, anthropologists study civilizations that are in development in isolated regions of the world that haven't been touched by modern society. It's possible that alien scientists have been doing the same thing. And if they've been doing the same thing in recent times, how far might that go back? But raising that theoretical possibility is not saying that it was a fact. And it's also a far cry from saying they might have been observing us to saying that they were in direct contact with us and built the pyramids and things like that. And of course, that's one of the top three for me, is that aliens built the pyramids and other megalithic structures. This is one of those go-tos by the ancient alien folks that, you know, they love to pull out. Yep.
Very popular images from the 70s and earlier. They're always green and in popular imagination, the aliens.
Yeah. Or gray now, which maybe that's from the X-Files.
At the beginning, they were imagined more green.
Well, I think actually one of the some famous alien abductees, Betty and Barney Hill and Travis Walton, basically kind of just established the popular description of aliens as being a kind of small physically with big eyes. And both of those, you know, are pretty fascinating cases, Betty and Barney Hill and Travis Walton. And they're cases that we don't have time to go into here. They would deserve a much closer examination because there's a lot of details to them. And it should be noted that, you know, for they who claim to have been abducted by UFOs actually tried to avoid the ancient aliens and the UFO theorist extremists because they were just too far out there. But yeah, the old aliens built the pyramids and megalithic structures is always a go-to because they can say, well, you know, you look at the perfect alignment of them with the stars. Nobody's figured out how the pyramids were built. And those blocks are far too large for any group of ancient humans without modern technology to move. all of those.
Except that we do have now more of an explanation how they moved it, and we
Yes,
figured
exactly.
it out, how they moved each piece. And I find it very interesting that there are records in Egypt, there are records written on stone that
Yes.
show what the workers' the names they were participating in building them,
Yep.
when they missed work and why. I mean, they had such close records of every single person was working on the pyramids, and like person had a fever and didn't come to work. And it was, I mean, they really had maybe better records than we keep now.
Yeah, and not to mention the most obvious evidence of all, you can see the evolution of the Egyptian pyramids and the different pyramids leading up to the building of the Great Pyramid. The very first Egyptian pyramid was built by Pharaoh Djoser, and it's a step pyramid, and it's basically like a funeral mastaba, which is like the elevated platform of mud bricks. But the Egyptian innovation was to change from mud brick, which, of course, when it rains or it floods, mud brick, forget about it. There goes your pyramid. That's why, although we have reports that the cities in ancient Sumeria and Assyria and so forth were absolutely spectacular, we don't have a lot of, large buildings that remain intact because most of them were made of mud brick. And so,
and even some that were made of wood, such as there were really intricate houses in Norway, and the Vikings had very like several floors and other things like castles made of wood, but all the wood rotted. So that's unfortunate.
Wood doesn't hold up very well either. Yeah. And so, Djoser built a step pyramid. His son, the one that actually perfected the form of the pyramid, Pharaoh Sneferu, actually built 3 pyramids. One of them had the outer structure collapse. So you can literally just see it's like sides going up and then inward, and then it stops and there's a whole bunch of pile of bricks around it because it just collapsed. Then he built a bent pyramid, which is complete, but kind of changes angles in the middle as it kind of, you could tell at some point that they were building this bent pyramid and realized we need to change angles or it's going to fall down. And then his final pyramid, which is called the Red Pyramid, I believe, where he was actually buried until his, of course,
and that's when he got help from the aliens to build a better pyramid.
But you can see the evolution. And his son Pharaoh Khufu, aka Cheops, built the Great Pyramid, which is the one everybody knows today. And his son Khafre built the second largest pyramid, along with the Sphinx. Ancient aliens had nothing to do with it. And the ones in South America, for example, that they love to use because the blocks are so huge, Dr. Edward Barnhart has demonstrated scientifically that there is a method to create these huge blocks without actually having to carve them out and move them around. And so, even if they did move them around in such a large way, when the ancient alien theorists say, well, why don't we do that anymore? Well, because we don't build things like that using those techniques anymore. Those techniques were region specific. And why were they built with huge blocks? Well, you go to the South American civilizations, or even like the Aztecs or Mayans, they lived in areas that were quite often very prone to strong earthquakes. So if you were going to make cities that were going to last in the mountains, like in the Andes, you had to build megalithic structures that could resist the earthquakes. That's why they're so large, is that they were designed to survive the earthquakes. And there's actually a funny story. When the Spanish came in and conquered the Incan Empire, and they tried to erase all history of the Incas. And so they built, I heard this story of the Spanish built a church over an Inca building. and to make it a chapel and hide the original building. Well, there was a massive earthquake and the Spanish building completely collapsed. The Inca building was still standing. It was fine. Had no damage at all.
It's like the Three Little Pigs story.
Yeah. Except with earthquakes rather than wind. Yeah. But why doesn't we don't use megalithic blocks anymore? Because there's no reason to.
And also it was a sign of wealth. The wealthier the pharaoh was, the bigger the tomb, because in Egypt the purpose was actually burial, not to live in it.
And it was a way to keep the country employed. They employed a lot of workers, and contrary to popular imagination, the people that built the pyramids were not slaves. They were expert craftsmen, and they were paid in money. Sometimes they were paid in beer. Yeah, it must have been fun. A beer party after after a hard day of work at building the pyramid. Just don't drink it before you try to build the pyramid. That could be a very nasty combination. Oops, I dropped a block. Oh, there goes my leg. No. But the actual science in so many cases is so much more fascinating than the aliens. Now, it would be fascinating.
Theories, I think conspiracy theories, some people find them easier to digest than science. Yeah. So it's kind of a shortcut to understanding things that are hard to understand. But
yeah,
you take time, you understand the science.
And I think sometimes science has a responsibility too, that they don't communicate their ideas in language that is easy to understand. That can be a real challenge. So I'll save the next two because they're of supposed races that existed, on the earth before humanity or alongside humanity. These have been appropriated to ancient aliens, but they're not.
One image that shows the image how one stone could be transported. And there were logs placed underneath so that it would roll on top of them, and they would just put take a log in front and then take the one from the back and then keep moving like that. So they were basically on wheels.
Yeah, and the big blocks were brought from a quarry far away because in that period, the Nile came up close to the pyramids. The Nile has moved. So it used to be a lot closer to the pyramids, so they could transport the big blocks on rafts. So I said, the next two will be kind of rolled together, that they've been appropriated by ancient aliens, but they didn't start out from the ancient aliens. Aliens grabbed them like they have so many others. So let's turn to the celebrities who never actually died.
Okay. Well, the one that I wanted to focus on is the more recent, because of course everybody knows Elvis. Maybe you're familiar with the Elvis theory that he's alive. And I think by now, even if he had been alive, probably be in the meantime. How old would he be now?
I thought he just passed his 100th birthday, but I might be off about that.
So okay, he may be 100, but
yeah.
But Michael Jackson is a more recent death, so a lot of theories sprouted after he died that he was not in fact dead, and one of them actually promised that there would be new music from Michael Jackson. And we know that, it is known that he actually did have a lot of songs that he had not publicized, and he was saving them as his legacy for his children to be able to make money off of them after he would die. So yes, there is new music, but it's actually old music. But there is a theory that his new music, I'm trying to find somebody, let me see, just trying to find it. Well, there was a songwriter, Teddy Riley, who first circulated the idea that he was alive in 2010.
Okay.
So Sorry, 2010. No,
Oh, and let me guess, the guy was, of course, putting out an album of music supposedly by Michael Jackson.
no,
I
he
suppose.
didn't. But that
Oh,
wasn't the one
okay.
I was thinking about. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, I thought that might be a motive, that other than wish fulfillment.
I messed up here my files.
Yeah. Well, let me just say this about the Elvis one.
Okay, you can talk about
Elvis
that and I'll
died.
find my file.
Elvis died at a fairly young age, in his 40s, although he had a tough life, shall we say. He did a lot of abuse to his body, so he aged actually quicker than his physical age would have shown. But the idea that he faked his death primarily stems from somebody observing, well, his name is misspelled on his tombstone. I think that's sloppy work by the guys that did the tombstone, as opposed to the people who believed in the theory that he faked his death. Basically said, well, that was Elvis's sign to his fans that he was actually still alive.
Well, the problem with Michael Jackson was that nobody can actually access Michael Jackson's tomb. So that, of course, invites people to speculate that he actually is not dead. But so it was actually, he died in 2009, and already in 2010 there were theories. But in 2017, it's his former stylist, Steve Earhart, who put a message on Twitter showing Michael Jackson's feet and saying that he said this: "You heard it here first, an announcement of sorts. And in a couple months or latest at the end of the year, you will be receiving some very good news. Not even the family knows, but I do." And the promise never came to light. He was promising new music that Michael Jackson supposedly was recording right then in a recording studio that he was privy to. But so yeah, he showed the legs, saying that he was there with him as he was recording. Okay. But and that was in 2017. But the wildest Michael Jackson speculation of his death was a lot of fans started to pick on this person, Dave, who was a burn victim, who was friends with Michael Jackson. And I actually have a picture that I wanted to put on. Dave was, as a child, Michael Jackson helped him a lot because his father burned him on purpose, and he was kind of became popular. And he was also an artist, a musician. And okay, so no. Did I get rid of it? Anyway, Dave appeared on Larry King's show, and everybody started to speculate that he was in fact Michael Jackson disguised as Dave. And I will show you the picture and why. I mean, they put videos showing his face against Michael Jackson and saying like, this is exactly the face structure of Michael Jackson and the voice of Michael Jackson, and he looks to the side just like Michael Jackson. And so except what they didn't. So this is supposed to be Michael Jackson disguised as Dave, who was on Larry King. Except that Dave was much shorter than Michael Jackson, which is something that I like. Oh, well, maybe he walked funny, so to disguise his height. But in any case, I never thought any of this was true. But people would just analyze vocally, like vocal analysts or voice analysts, saying that this is in fact the same timbre of his voice. And they were friends. I mean, it's possible that he was influenced by Michael Jackson in some ways. And by the way, Michael Jackson's voice was not really his normal speaking voice, the one that he would show in public, the kind of this was really not his real voice. So if Dave sounded like Michael Jackson, he sounded like Michael Jackson's stage voice, not his real voice. Yeah, this is like where they put the two of them together. Anyway, so this is one theory that circulated until Dave actually died. So he passed away, and then all these conspiracies stopped because there was no new footage, and then finally they couldn't use that anymore.
Wow.
And also, of course, there were other signs. Like some fans said that he mentioned that he would like to just disappear from the public at one point, just at the top of his career, and then hide somewhere and live anonymously for the rest of his life. Some people, and he did say things like that, but that doesn't mean that he actually did it. A lot of people say a lot of things, but also there were at his, so Dave actually spoke about Michael Jackson on the day of Michael Jackson's funeral on Larry King's show. So that was the reason, like they said that he came out at his own funeral to speak about himself. And also there was another speculation that at the funeral there was a blonde woman whose kind of profile looked like Michael Jackson from a distance. So then they would just juxtapose the image of that woman and then the image of Michael Jackson and say, this is the exact same face, but with a wig. But apparently he was at his funeral and on TV at the same time.
He was cloned.
Yeah. And also they found evidence. I think also at the funeral, there was a third speculation that a person who looked like his character in the video for Ghosts, where he is dressed as a like kind of white man with glasses and heavy, kind of heavy set person. And they said that person was sighted at the funeral. So in fact, Michael Jackson appeared in 3 ways at his own funeral. 1 was on TV and 2 were people at the funeral. So pick your choice of whichever sounds plausible, but none of them sounded plausible to me.
Michael and 2 clones.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh boy. Yeah. Sounds like that TikTok one was just like a publicity stunt, I suppose. Wish fulfillment. I mean, it's not unheard of that somebody could fake their death, but usually if somebody did that, they might be like on the run from the law, or people thought they were dead and they just decided to let them think that way. I mean, in those cases, you would have a motive for it. Like there was one of the cryptocurrency billionaires, or a guy who made a lot of money in cryptocurrency in Canada, died under mysterious circumstances at a young age, and he was the only one that had the passwords to his account. He had embezzled a crap load of money from investors, like on the level of millions upon millions of dollars. And so there's all kinds of speculation that he might have faked his death. And in that case, when you're like on the run from the law and you've embezzled a crap load of money, then you might have somebody that would actually have the motive and the resources to actually pull something like that off. And of course, if you did, you would never be, if you're smart, you're never seen again. Because what's the point of faking your own death if you later come back and reveal, hey, I'm not dead?
But imagine if somebody actually went through a disguise to live the rest of their life, disguised as Dave, or as a person in a fat suit or whatever. Yeah. Imagine these things took hours for the filming of those things. I mean, the fat suit for the video Ghosts, it would take hours and hours of makeup and putting the costume on. Imagine having to do that every day to be able to go anywhere, to go hours and hours of makeup and all those things. Why exactly? That would be a good question.
Well, probably the best way to fake your own death is if everybody thinks you're dead anyway. So, for example of this, where the people actually ended up surviving, was actually proven recently by Josh Gates, archaeologist and TV host from Expedition Unknown, or Exploration Unknown. And basically they were looking at the famous escape from Alcatraz, which was the island prison out in California by San Francisco and Oakland, that was like the supermax prison of its era. And there was only one successful escape from it, with 3 convicts who escaped. And for years, it was basically believed that they died. But there was always rumors that they may have made it. So it turned out that after the last one had died, somebody got a picture of the 3 of them, apparently looking much older, in Brazil. And so Josh Gates and some others went down and investigated it and found some evidence. And they took this photo they legitimized the photo, and they took it to a facial recognition expert who had developed an algorithm and computer program to test it. And they ran it, and it came up like a 99% match that these were the 3 guys that had escaped from Alcatraz. They had made it. And then it turns out they got transported by a mafia guy down to Brazil. And everybody thought they died. And so they just let people believe that. And they started new lives down there eventually. For a long time, they were hidden out in the wilderness and got fed by the kindness of some local villagers. But the people thought they were dead. And so they just let them think that. Yeah, and of course, that was actually smart, because they were the only ones that ever successfully escaped from Alcatraz. The US government would have spared no expense to get their asses back in jail. So, I mean, they were actually smart. That the US government said they're dead. Okay, we'll take it. And you actually have legitimate scientific, proof established by computers, to a 99% degree of probability, and the chances that it would be an accidental match are like 1 in a trillion or some impossible level like that.
And for 3 people to be,
Yeah,
have those chances,
and
for 3 living
and
together
this is more
around each other,
and this is more
astronomical.
Yeah, and this is more of the case that everybody thought they were dead, so they just like, why change your mind? It's actually a gift horse. They're not looking. If they think they're dead, we're dead. They're not looking for us. So it was actually
one interesting version of another conspiracy theory type about people's death is that a lot of the time there are speculations and conspiracies about people who are alive, and people speculate that they're not themselves anymore, but another person impersonating an impersonator who then took their place, and now they're blaming the new person on whatever's bad about what the person does, such as Putin. There's a conspiracy theory right now that Putin is not a clone, but just a person, a body double, and that Putin is actually dead. And now this one, well, he happens to be a little older. I mean, he's growing old, and maybe his face is a little different because of age. And I'm sure if you had experts and analyze them through a computer and all these things, you'd immediately prove that it's the same person. Yeah. But again, science is boring. People don't want, okay, let's sit down with an expert and analyze. No, they want some kind of more glamorous explanation for something going on. Like the war in Russia, in Ukraine, is started by a fake Putin. And same thing with a fake Clinton, a fake, everybody has a fake.
That perfectly leads into one of those also rans for me. And that is that lizard people have taken the place of various world leaders like Hillary Clinton, probably somebody like Vladimir Putin, the Pope at various times. The idea that there's reptilians that lived under the earth. Of course, this has been dragooned by ancient aliens as well, but it started out separately. It basically was cooked up by a treasure hunter in Los Angeles who said that he had found secret tunnels under Los Angeles and structures, and he described art that had lizards on it. And this was covered by the mainstream press, but it's the 1930s. So, and of course it was popularized in science fiction at the time, fantasy stories about lizard creatures from space or from the depths of the earth. and he took a popular, story at the time and tried to make it fact. It faded away, but then got reborn with, the ancient aliens grabbing it, but then also that these reptilians. I wouldn't be surprised if this came from, like, in part, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, but also the John Carpenter movie They Live. The idea that aliens had taken over human bodies and had taken the place of humans and were acting like humans, but they actually weren't human. I mean, that became a
Of course, there are a
popular.
lot of pictures and videos that supposedly show that somebody actually turning their head a certain way, they look reptilian. And these days, you can make anything look like anything through.
Yeah, or they turn in their eyes, have a certain glow in them that is a hint of it. And it's like, it's not true. It's just, this one can actually be funny. I watched a YouTube channel called the Why Files, actually the word WHY, and it looks at kind of silly theories and conspiracy theories, and asks if there's some grain of truth to them or if it's all just cooked up. And the guy on there has a fake pet goldfish he calls Hecklefish that has a tinfoil hat on top of his aquarium. And the other day I was watching one and it goes, is this going to involve lizard peoples? And like lizard peoples with one word. And I love that. But for today, I decided I was going to have a little shirt to celebrate it. The conspiracy theory kitty. I didn't wear a tinfoil hat myself, but I got a shirt with a cute kitten wearing a tinfoil hat. To celebrate crazy conspiracy theories. And of course, another one along with the lizard people that used to exist is the idea that giants walked the earth. This is an old one, and a lot of this goes back to this is one that's been grabbed by Ancient Aliens again, but I think the roots of this one had its hinged in the desire for the Bible and other, to be literally real, that everything that's described in the Bible actually took place. So in Genesis, there's a translation that giants once walked the earth, and there are those who want to argue that this means literal, like 20-foot, 15-foot tall giants. And through the years, there have been claims that various fossils have been found or complete skeletons of humans that were actually giants. And some of the pictures look quite well done, where you see these normal sized people that supposedly excavated these skeletons. But, and if you actually had giant skeletons, like if you had a human skeleton that was 20 feet tall, and you could actually test it and measure it, and if it turned out to be legit, then, well, the history of the world has just been rewritten. I think, yep, there's one now, and that's a nicely done picture, except it's not real. Because
today you can, with all kinds of editing techniques, you can do anything. But it's funny that this skeleton shows up in different countries, supposedly the same picture. Romanians in my country, now and then I have friends post it on Facebook, and I know that it's appeared in other countries as well. As
I didn't know it was the exact same picture.
It's in their country, It's the exact same picture.
Yeah, I mean, this would be one that if you could actually find evidence and test it, it would actually be very fascinating. But inevitably, you never find any evidence. It's never located. It's never found. If it's there, it mysteriously disappears. It's mentioned, but again, it's always, and the laugher on this one is supposedly that the Smithsonian and the Vatican and others hide evidence of it. Although this is a funny story connected to Ancient Aliens, because they've got several of these shows where they supposedly found giants. So in any case, I'm watching this episode, getting a good laugh out of it, and at the end they're on the island of Sardinia, which has these giant, big, large ruins and had statues of that look like giants, and so people think there was a race of giants there. And they were going to meet somebody that supposedly had some actual bones of giants. And so I turned to my wife and said, yeah, I bet they're going to come back and say they all disappeared. The old government cover-up, military cover-up. Came back from commercial and they go, unfortunately, all of the bones that have ever been found were kept into this one church and disappeared under mysterious circumstances.
Taken by the aliens.
And our contact who was going to give us fossils begged off at the last minute. And I literally yelled at the TV, oh, come on. Because I wasn't actually angry. I was just like, well, first of all, I had said it and then it ended up that they actually said that. But it was just like, this is the best you can do for an explanation?
Yeah. But there is an explanation for the existence of these pictures and the popularity of them. In the last 15 years, they've been circulating. And apparently it started with the National Geographic contest for submitting pictures of altered shapes and sizes. Like, I forget the name of it, something altered size reality. And people submitted. This one was the one of these pictures of skeletons was one of the winners of that contest at National Geographic. And then people started to write to National Geographic because they knew it originated from them or associated with National Geographic. And then it just kept going on for 15 years, this very popular conspiracy. But if you're, I mean, it's very easy to do that because, one of my favorite examples of that was there was a photographer who liked to alter the size of his cat, and then he would have pictures of his, maybe you've seen these pictures.
Giant cat pictures.
Yeah, giant cat placed in different situations around the city, or dogs. Somebody had a giant dog, and it's it's easy to play with reality in pictures, obviously.
Yeah. Well, now there might actually have been people that would be considered giants back in the past, and this was actually from a documentary that actually was rational about it. In all likelihood, it would probably be people that if there were people considered giants in the past, they were probably those that were infected either with giantism, which is like uncontrolled growth during childhood into, where it tapers off as an adult, but they tend to have very short lives, or like the condition like Andre the Giant had and a number of other pro wrestlers who are really big, where it's called acromegaly, where their pituitary gland won't stop producing growth.
Or Peter Mayhew, who played Chewbacca, was also affected by this.
Okay.
They tend to die younger because their heart can't support that much body.
Yeah, well, there is thankfully now a treatment for that where you can get the gland removed and be on medication and then live a full life. But Andre the Giant never had the gland removed, tragically, because he was afraid that he would lose his career as a wrestler. So, toward the end of the last 10 years of his life, he was almost in constant howling pain. And when he died, his skeleton was, extremely heavy because the bones had grown so much. So when that happened in the past, a person who was infected by that or affected by that would look like a giant, but they would only be like 7, maybe 8 feet tall. But if, in the past, the average height was a lot smaller because, we're taller now because our nutrition, the way we eat, is much better than it was in the past. So you get somebody who's 5 feet tall, and then you suddenly get somebody who's 7'5". Of course, they're going to look like a giant. But those are real giants, not 20 feet tall. Okay, so finally to my number one craziest conspiracy theory, and this is a winner by far, the flat Earth theory. This one's been around since the 1950s, and a lot of people used to believe in the Middle Ages and so for ancient times the Earth was flat. even though an ancient Greek scientist, then this was illustrated on the TV series Cosmos by Carl Sagan, that accurately measured the Earth and used science to do it in a very clever way. And he was this Greek scientist was almost exactly right, just off by a little bit. But I mean, considering he was using literally just, footsteps and angle of the sun, it's amazing that he claimed so close to it. But, for the most part, after, Columbus went around the world and in the voyages of exploration, the whole idea of the Earth was flat faded away. For whatever reason, it was revived in the 1950s, but with the formation of the Flat Earth Society. I mean, hell, not even ancient aliens will embrace this nuttiness. I mean, this is how far out it is. I thought for a while it disappeared, and then it apparently popped up again recently and has been renewed in popularity. And the latest one is like a crazy ass version of a Game of Thrones and Men in Black. So the current popular version is that the Earth is flat, and then kind of like the poster I had, flyer I made up. I can't see this exactly, but it's like the flat Earth floating in space, orbiting the sun. Although one of the guys that argues for it says the sun is actually stationary, whatever. Okay. If you believe the Earth is flat, you're probably just going to say anything, because you really don't follow science too well. And it's surrounded by a wall of giant ice that is actually, we think of it as Antarctica, but it's actually a giant wall of ice that surrounds the planet. And NASA secret agents guard the ice wall, and anybody who gets too close, they put a mind control whammy on them and cause them to forget. Sounds like the guy watched too many Men in Black movies, and I think, I used to say, wow, somebody liked Game of Thrones. I think actually the ice wall came out, was there before Game of Thrones, maybe. Although there's a couple of competing different theories. I mean, I read this the other day, and it's like, there's a rivalry apparently between the Flat Earth Society or Flat Earthers and a bunch that gathered called the Flat Earth International Conference. So you mean there's different versions of the flat Earth theory? Seriously, I really wonder what's the difference. My Earth is flatter than your Earth. We can't even get along on whether the Earth is flat or not. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, this is like what really got my attention of this is like there's a guy on YouTube, and I don't think he's BSing. I actually found a fake conspiracy theory that a bunch of young people had done as a fake that caught on with the younger generation who everybody seemed to know it was a fake. And it basically this guy came up with the idea that birds aren't real. And he cooked up this story between 1956 and 2001. The US government killed all of the birds and replaced them with drones and robots who watch us all now. And he and a bunch of other young people went around and staged protests and go, birds aren't real, birds aren't real. I'm glad it was fake, because it was actually like kind of a storyline performance just to see if they could get people to believe it or the news media to follow it. And it was true. And eventually they just let everybody in on the hint that, yeah, this is fake. But it proved, how easy it could be to start a conspiracy theory movement that may not actually be true, but is just done to draw attention, or to make the message of how easy it is to come up with some crazy ass conspiracy theory and have people believe it. But there's a guy on YouTube who seems to be the main advocate of the flat Earth theory, and he calls himself Flat Earth Dave. I'm ashamed that I have the same first name with this guy. Sad. Yeah, this guy is really far out there. But what caught my attention about Flat Earth Dave was that he actually debated a legitimate scientist who has a YouTube channel called Professor Dave Explains. And they actually had an hour-long debate. I watched maybe half of it. it was painful to watch. And I'm still trying to determine if Flat Earth Dave is crazy for debating a legitimate scientist, or just is like, or incredibly brave to actually go out and defend his position, even though it's absolutely insane. I'm still not sure. I mean, I'm kind of impressed that he actually has the cojones to go and defend his position when it's clearly loony. I think he's pretty serious. I mean, he has the behavior. And one of the things that the lady of the library pointed out is that when you find people that have conspiracy theories who are generally far out, if you challenge them, they tend to respond with personal attacks or get angry and are very vicious in their response or dismiss any logical points. And, Flat Earth Dave acts like that. So I actually think he believes it. The only thing, of course, Professor Dave wiped them out with him in terms of science. The only thing I observed from it was that there was a lot of time where Professor Dave would say, "You're an effing idiot. You're a moron. You're so stupid. You're an idiot." And I was just thinking, it's like, I could imagine how difficult it would be to actually debate somebody like that, because you probably want to throttle them. But on the other hand, when you kind of condescend to them and cuss them out and so forth, you kind of play into their hands, because all Flat Earth Dave has to do to his viewers, however many there are, is like, look at how he treats me. He talks down to me. He's swearing at me. He's afraid of the truth. He can't defend himself politely, so he insults me. And that's the only thing that I would have criticism that I'd have Professor Dave, is that when he debates, it's kind of like he talks down to him and attacks him personally. I just like stick with the science, but that would be really tough to if you're a legitimate scientist and you're actually trying to like debate somebody who has this kind of crazy ass idea. But yeah, that one, Flat Earth theory's got to be at my top of my craziest conspiracy theories. I mean, that one is just like, wow. I can't believe there's that. I think I checked Flat Earth Dave's YouTube subscriber count. It was like 15,000, which is, I think it was 15,000, which is like, well, if it was like 5 million, I'd actually be worried. But 15,000 is like, okay, that's, yeah.
But apparently one flat earther conspiracy theorist trying to prove that the earth is flat actually proved that it's round. But I'm forgetting, because I saw that in the news and I forget how that happened, but trying to create a theory of why there's gravitation and things like that, and he actually proved that the earth is round. But I need to look that up exactly how he proved it.
And he probably then said I was under their mental control. They tricked me into saying it. But yeah. Well, I'm sure there'll always be more crazy conspiracy theories out there, but
I can top your first conspiracy theory with.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm kidding. Oh. It is, well, the one, my top one, that has to do with science and the speculation. I mean, science is always, of course, it has to have an element of speculation, but some of those speculations are so wild and crazy that it makes us question our very existence in some ways. And one of the newest theories that I have, I need to unplug my, sorry, it's me.
I think I know where this one might be going, but well, no, I'll see, because there's, there are a lot of if you just heard it alone, these theories sound crazy, but some of them come from the area of science called theoretical physics. And
so I mean, some of them actually proved true, like Einstein had theories that at his time they laughed at him, but today, like relativity. But the thing is that some things are still not explained in relation to, apparently the physics doesn't work too well with quantum. You may have heard quantum, right?
Yeah, quantum
Well, anyway,
physics.
a new theory now says that thinking of our universe in 2 dimensions, that we actually everything is in 2 dimensions, would explain some of the contradictions of quantum and regular physics, such as, particles that communicate through almost, unbelievable space, and they react to each other at the same time. So almost as if that third dimension doesn't exist. Well, they explain that through, they say that in a black hole, when something enters a black hole, and this has been observed, so each particle both enters the hole and remains at the surface of the black hole. So it's almost like it duplicates, and one particle disappears and one particle remains at the surface. So basically they're saying that the whole universe could be at the surface of a black hole, and the third dimension is holographic. So we have information in three dimensions, but in fact we exist in 2 dimensions. So if you think of a hologram and you look at it from a certain angle, you see it as flat. And if you look at it at a certain angle, you see it as 3-dimensional. So, like, so there's some culture, sometimes you go, if you change perspective, it changes from 2 to 3 dimensions. They're saying our universe may be like that, and we just think we get information as if we were in the 3rd dimension, but that dimension doesn't exist, and that apparently explains how gravity works better than 3 dimensions. It works better in 2 dimensions.
Well, that actually sounds
I
like
don't claim to understand all of it, but it seems like the wildest theory I've heard.
It's like it's like just a theoretical idea put out there for discussion. Like, do we all live in a computer matrix? That's one. Other areas theoretical physics looks at are areas that we'll never probably be able to solve, like what existed before the Big Bang. Because, for all our technology, we'll only probably be able to look up to the moment of the Big Bang. But theoretical physics tries to answer or put out theories on what existed before the Big Bang, what caused the Big Bang. Are there other universes? Is there a multiverse? Is there other dimensions connected to ours? Now, these are often popularized in TV shows, movies, the multiverse, the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah, I mean, these are so popular now, and they start from from speculative physics, and then they turn into what people really believe. Like even the Matrix, there are a lot of people who really think that we live in the Matrix. I mean, it turns from a movie to belief. I mean, to actually conspiracy theory, and some people will start. Even new religions with such theories, right? Like Scientology is based kind of on a.
Yeah, and that's where we actually need to kind of, okay, guys, hold your horses. This was not intended to actually be believed in. It's actually, a theory put out there to create discussion, but not promoted as actual fact. Like, there's theoretically, it's possible for a microscopic black hole to open up in an atmosphere. Theoretically, that was, physicists say it might happen, but it doesn't mean that it has, which again, you see in Ancient Aliens, it actually did happen. No.
Well, people love speculative theories because every conspiracy theory starts with a speculation, right? Unless somebody has actually evil purposes and started just to get to mess with people. But most of the time, people hear a theory and it's so fascinating to them. And maybe it simplifies reality in such a way that they start spreading it as fact. And then people catch on, and then it becomes a conspiracy theory that is more popular than reality, because reality is boring.
Well, I will say this too, that sometimes scientists can make the mistake of coming across as if everything has been discovered and that we now know everything that there is to know. And some scientists will kind of take it to the extreme, like, science has proven that there is no God, which no, I don't believe that. But yeah, to also say that claim that we know everything is just, not, true. There's always going to be things that we don't know. And you just look at how much we've learned, how much life has changed since I was born in 1968. The world looks almost nothing like it did in the 1970s in terms of technology, science, what we're capable of. This thing wouldn't have even existed in 1968. That was the realm of Star Trek.
And actually,
science,
Star Trek influenced the creation of the iPhone because they try to maybe find a way to make that happen in reality. So it was
science fiction becomes science fact, but there's still a lot of stuff that we don't know, and there's some things we will never know. And I said, we'll never know what caused the Big Bang, because there's no way that we could go back and actually look, or we won't. How will the universe end? Is there dark matter? And these things are all fascinating. It's just, it's good to try to present them in a way that everyone can understand it. And I think that's one of the things that Carl Sagan was just so good at. He could present the most complicated of concepts in a way anyone could understand it. And, that's something that science, I think, really needs to, concentrate on, is present these things in a way that anybody can understand it. And to be willing to kind of just say, hey, look, here's these ideas. And, don't talk down to people too. Because I think that's one of the reasons too, is that there's sometimes scientists and academics can be very condescending and talk down to people.
Like you wouldn't understand. And then, then they have a backlash.
Yeah.
Well, you're the one who doesn't understand the truth. So it's almost like a reaction to.
Or as I like to put it, the most brilliant scientist in the world, if their air conditioning honks out, has to call an air conditioning repair person to get it fixed. Or if their fancy car breaks down, they got to take it to an auto mechanic to fix it, because all their PhDs probably won't help them fix a car or change their oil. So everybody has their own specialized field of knowledge. It may not be academic in nature, but just leave a physicist to change their oil in the car. Of course, you might end up with a nuclear explosion or some oil monster that comes to life and devours half the city. But just kidding.
That sounds like a good short story.
Yeah, but it's just that the idea that we science and academics and I think people in all walks of life could use a little bit of approach life with humility to realize that we all don't know everything. And everybody has different fields of knowledge and things that they're good at. And just because you're not good at academics in some areas doesn't mean that you're deficient in any way, shape, or form. You just have a different set of skills. Try putting Albert Einstein out on the basketball floor. Or there was a funny ad. Itzhak Perlman is one of the world's greatest violinists, and somebody came up with an ad replacing Itzhak Perlman, Rhea Perlman, who's an actress, and she breaks out her violin. It's like, just because they have the same last name doesn't mean that Rhea Perlman could play the violin, or Itzhak Perlman could act his way out of a wet paper sack. So yeah, we've had some fun in our I don't know if we'll do another conspiracy theory presentation or not. I think we might have probably reached the end of this topic. I mean, I wasn't going to do one, then I thought I saw the flat earth theory, and it's like, okay, we got one more conspiracy theory video that we can do. Perhaps next semester we'll be back doing a farewell to The Walking Dead, as we'll analyze like maybe the final season of The Walking Dead and what it holds for the future. And if you're fans for the show, man, got to watch that final episode. It's going to be a good one. If you're my students, just email me that you attended and I'll give you the extra credit as promised. That's all you have to do. Just email me or message me on, send a Blackboard message that you attended and I'll get it marked down. Otherwise, thank you all for attending. Thank you, Liana, for
Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, sorry about the misspelling on the flyer. I only realized later it's like, God, blasted autocorrect. Ah! And I didn't see it until the flyers were all printed. And it's like, yes, us professors who teach English sometimes forget to do what we tell students they're supposed to do and proofread for mistakes before we send something out. Yes, because we as English professors are actually only human and we make the same mistakes everybody else does.
Sometimes in a hurry.
Including our students. Which is good to remember, you know, therefore, but for the grace of God go I. Well, heck, even major publishers can have a spelling errors that creep into their books. Heck, I was reading a published novel once where the author forgot that he killed off a character and the character turned up alive in like 25 chapters later. And it's like, wait a minute, this guy was dead. He was dead. He like literally forgot and brought him back to life, which, and even worse, the editor who was supposed to go over the book and read through it didn't catch it either. Which is, and then it got published, so can't feel too bad about those things. All right, so thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Liana, again.
Thank you. Bye.
Yep, bye. Everybody have a great weekend, and I'll see you in the future. I'll see you at the meeting, Liana.
Okay, bye.
Online. Bye.